Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And before we start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work, live, and love. And I pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So today I will tell you a bit more about what we can learn from WIL course. And at first, I will explain you about the context, why we are doing this study. So the broader context is that the federal government and of course industry and the universities are at the moment developing a very, very strong focus around employability. In Griffith University specifically, it's part of our strategic plan for 2020 and 2025. And there has been several scholarships, like authors writing about this focus in Australia. But of course, it's not only in Australia, it's a bit everywhere else in the world. So there is really a big interest in employability. And when we talk about employability, we found out that actually work integrated learning, or WIL, actually are a very good pedagogical and teaching approach to be able to bridge the theory and the practice for our students. And there has been also a scholarship demonstrating the benefit of this learning approach. Noticeably, Jackson has written quite extensively about that. So far also, it has been used as kind of a benchmark to measure how our students are being employable, and also to make sure that if we want to enhance their employability, then we will suggest them to do a WIL. And that is something that every year there is a survey asking the students if they have undertaken a WIL and so on. However, coming from my own discipline in architecture, we found out that there was less than 10% of our students who undertook a WIL. And so we were wondering, why on earth is that so? And so last year, we did apply for a learning and teaching grant at the science group level. And we did propose to make a small assessment of the WIL courses within our science group and to see what could be identified as trends and gaps across the disciplines, and then to understand what are the structural elements from the WIL. So for example, which type are they, what are the learning outcomes, the graduate attributes, and to get also feedback from the key stakeholders. At the moment, we have done the course conveners and the industry partners, but we plan also to interview the students. Our team is cross-disciplinary. We have people from architecture, but also we have the Deputy Director of Griffith Sciences Partnership Office, Marde Elbig, and Julie Craft, who worked for a long time at Griffith for the learning and teaching enhancement. Sorry, you didn't tell me that that my screen was not moving. No one told me. Sorry, so this is a slide that you should have seen. From a methodological point of view, so we started at the end of October. We had to submit our report in March, and between October and March, we did a background study in terms of literature review, WIL type review, and across the science group. We did conduct several surveys with the course convener, industry partners, the students, and we conducted also 2 workshops with our course conveners and industry partners. So altogether, we reviewed 108 articles. We chat and had the workshop with 11 course convener, and we had survey and workshop with 28 industry partners. So in terms of results, the first category is what I call the structural elements. And what we could find out is that 5 main wheel types were identified in the literature review. The first one concerned internship. So basically, the student is sent into the workplace and does complete task or project that the employer is giving them. The second is more a project, and this is where there is a collaboration around a real life project, but it's not necessarily a task that was 100% from the agenda from the industry partner. It could be a common project towards achieving some specific goals. The third type is service learning, and that is much more about community focus. And again, this is not necessarily like the community coming and saying, oh yeah, we need a student there. Very often it's the collaboration between a Griffith or an academic and a community member who wants to solve one issue. And then the fourth, incubator. So this is more like when we have startups and some elements need to be improved or some elements need to be processed. And the fifth, simulation. So that is more about industry project. And when we look at what happens within our science group, where we have 3 main schools. On the left, you can see School of Engineering and Built Environment, Environmental Sciences, Information Communication Technology, and we benchmark it against the Queensland College of Art. We can notice that within our science group, basically, we propose to our students mostly only 2 types of wheels, the internship and the project. But none of our courses, wheel courses, are proposing service learning, incubator, or simulation. And there is, among those 2 types of wheel which are undertaken, 73% are internship. So there is a big bias in the type of wheel our students are undertaking. Then the second element that we look at was the learning outcomes that are proposed for those wheel courses. And we evidence that there were 8 learning outcomes, and then we map them according to, again, the wheel courses that we had under the different schools. And again, what we found out is that those learning outcomes were very discipline and course specific. So depending if you had a project or an internship, you might not necessarily have all the same learning outcome. However, one thing that was overlapping almost across all the wheel were the communication learning outcome. So basically the soft skill was really something overlapping almost across every wheel. Then we look at the graduate attributes, and here from 1 to 6, you can see the 6 Griffith graduate attributes, and we map those 33 wheel courses. We map them to see how much of those graduate attributes were engaged with. And what we found is that basically the graduate attribute 1 to 4, almost every wheel courses like heavily consider them, but definitely the number 5, which is being culturally capable when working with first Australians, was really one Griffith graduate attribute that was missing. And then what we did compare, or not compare, but we did analyze whether there was adjustment or alignment between the learning attribute and the learning outcomes, and the graduate attributes. And that showed us that, yes, most of the time there is a good correlation between the two. However, 70% of the will course were missing one GA or Griffith attribute alignment. So it means that between what they say that the student will get at the end of this will, that was missing, not always completed. And the other thing, that we had some Griffith attribute, so besides the number 5, but the number 4 was very often listed in more than half of the will course, but it was not corroborated in the learning attribute. And the other level of analysis we made was to look at if there was a difference between the undergraduate and the postgraduate will courses regarding this alignment, and there was none at all. From the stakeholders, we conducted survey, and we had also a workshop where we asked them their feedback about our will courses. And what was interesting is that there were 10 elements that emerged that need to be discussed. The first thing, and those course conveners were not only from architecture, but from several other disciplines. The first thing that emerged is that the disciplines operate in silos, meaning if you are in architecture or in aviation or somewhere else, all those will course conveners, they don't know what the others are doing. And because of that, there is a bit of a problem also in the process and the workflow, not necessarily being identical. And I'm not saying that should be, but more at the level of knowledge. Some course conveners were quite new in the will area and they didn't know what they could do. Some were not even aware that we had a Griffith partnership office that could help you to liaise and to work with regarding the will. So it means that there was a problem also in the professionalism of those will being conducted. The second element was that the industry partners tend to be aligned with specific academic. So it means that the will opportunities are not necessarily a discipline opportunity, rather a individual opportunity, being able to talk his industry partner into recruiting some students. So in one hand, it's good because it means that it aligns with our research, but on the second hand, because it's so limited, it might explain why there was so little amount of students undertaking a will. Then what we saw also again was the will course convener networking. It was much more if you were doing a will in terms of a project type. It was again using the network of the course convener rather than a discipline network. The fourth element that came very strongly was that in terms of participation, it was very biased in the sense that students who enroll in will, they don't present a good diversity. For example, we are missing quite a fair bit of female representation, international representation, and students with less abilities. So that means also there is something to investigate a bit more in this area. And then we had a bit more that was much more feedback regarding the students themselves. And I don't want to develop that a bit further now because I think not only you have read it, but I think I would like to make a presentation once we have finished our studies with the students themselves and come back to those points later on. Then we had a workshop and survey with our industry partners, and this time we started only with the architecture discipline. And even though it was only with the architecture discipline, I think there are many of these results that can be actually generalized to other disciplines. The first thing that those industry partners told us is that they really think there is a gap between the practice and the university education. So this is something that comes strongly every time. And I know that in other disciplines, it's exactly the same thing. Oh, you are not doing a student ready for job, you know, you are just preparing some academics, but not necessarily job ready students. The second thing that came strongly was that the calendar we use for those wheel courses, and that are very often aligned with our trimester, and that are limited, I took in architecture, to 1 or 2 days per week. Basically, that was not something that was judged a very good system, because the feedback of the industry partners was that those students really need to spend much more time in the real practice to understand what it was. They didn't mind about the type of wheel, and it could be internship, cadetship, gap years, and so on, but they say it's fundamental that there is an intensive exposure, and that when we do 1 or 2 days a week, this is really not enough. The fourth element, which I think is quite interesting, was a suggestion to explore collaboration with staff or other technical institutions to focus on hard skill training. Some of those industry partners saw that very often our students come into the industry, they have some hard skill training, but not all of them. Let's say I think they say they have like 40% instead of 100% of the hard skill, and they thought that this is really something that needed to be enhanced. Hence, they propose that the curriculum should be revised to include more professional language, to include more hard skill training, but also to break out the disciplinary silos. For example, in architecture, they said, come on, our practice is really much with engineers, with surveyors, with plenty of other stakeholders, and then all your education in architecture is only about architecture. So how does that make sense? And I think that was quite a good feedback. But at the same time, in the survey, what was interesting is that when we asked them about who do you think should be more responsible for teaching graduate skills related to professional practice, the feedback, the answer say, oh, this is a student themselves. So they didn't see themselves as a mentor or people who would be able to, that should be responsible for teaching that to the student. And in the same way, there was another question. Oh, I'm sorry, I think it was, I have twice the same question here, but it was, this other question was, who do you think should be more responsible for teaching the graduate skills, university or practice, and then for career development, student or practice? So student for career development, and they still thought the university should be the one leading the teaching of graduate skills, which is a bit contradictory with what they said earlier when the student needs more intensive will or exposure. So this is strange because I think, yeah. In conclusion, what we have found is that basically in Griffith University, in the science group, there are 2 predominant types of will. And this could be a bit, I found that a bit intriguing, knowing that we are a research-led university. And I was wondering if we wanted to develop the diversity of employability skills for our students, if we shouldn't start to develop incubator and simulation type of wheel so that we will align even better with our research mission. So that was one first thing, because it means also that at the moment, all our wheels are targeted for the industry, but not necessarily for the research component of this industry. And so that is a question to be asked and discussed. The second big conclusion about what we can learn from those wheels across our science group is that this common missing graduate attribute regarding working with first Australian, our hypothesis is that this aspect is not wheel course restricted. And I trust everyone is aware that across the university, it's really something that is basically missing. And I was just wondering if this is not something that should become also a priority, even more when Queensland has signed an agreement with First Australians that we should work differently from now on. So that is another question. The other conclusion regards the wheel culture. We don't have really a wheel culture within the science group and even within our disciplines. And so it will be interesting maybe to develop more of that. And it doesn't have to be discipline bound, but rather all those academics who want to develop wheel portfolio so that they can learn from each other, and also from an ethical perspective to make sure that we create safe boundaries, that if you have a very good network, that your colleague is not taking advantage of it, but that we all make sure that our students can benefit from it. Then another conclusion was about the employability. Wheel is really perceived as a good tool to increase the employability, but again, we don't have so many students undertaking a wheel course. So it's why the question is, should it become a priority in our agenda rather than putting money maybe on some courses that don't need it so much? I'm just being a bit provocative here. And the other last thing was really about the minority participation. We know now that we have quite a good STEM program to encourage female students to be part of the STEM industry. But in the wheel course at the moment, we are still missing international students, female students, and less able students. So if we wanted to make sure that we fulfill equity and inclusion, that should be also a priority. Knowing that employability is at the forefront of our strategy, both at the university and Australian countrywide policy, I think we should now start to work much more on wheel. And thank you very much. That's it for me. If you have any question.
Thanks, Karine, for your interesting presentation. I'm sure there will be questions. I have actually a few questions because I'm running wheel in engineering, so I just wanted to make a little bit of comments. Well, okay, how about I just make like a comment and then we'll see if there's questions from the audience. I think because you're talking about like Griffith Sciences group, right? So the way I see that, for example, if we talk about engineering, so the problem that we have that everybody, like every student must actually take this course, what we call industry affiliates program. So, but if we look, for example, at science, so for science, it's not everybody must take it. So that's actually an elective course, and only those who probably like get the GPA requirement, they can take this course. So they can choose or like to do that or might not to do that. So I think in this case, when you talk about kind of like general conclusions, I think maybe you can also like clarify that, you know, the programs are different. I think you talk about 33 will courses because like maybe, for example,
so
yeah,
if I may answer, I didn't look at the IAP courses because they how to say, they are not officially like will courses, you know?
that's
And so I agree with you, all the other courses are not compulsory. So all our will courses the 33 courses that we did look were not compulsory.
okay. Well, maybe we can talk about it later now during this presentation because what we do in IP, we do work integrated learning when students work in the industry and work on the projects. It just like the way that we do it with science group. I mean, science department. It's a bit different. I think they don't even have like every day. I think they have maybe like 2 days, and ICT. I think they have more projects. I think I'm not sure if it's must for everybody, but like the way they run the program, it's a bit different from ours. So, okay. So, well, I just wanted to like make this comment for the audience so that they will have a better idea because if they are not familiar with the programs, with like what we have here. So,
but I think it's a good idea. Anyway, Ivan, I think it's really good also to have this distinction between what is required and what is on a voluntary basis, that actually it's either an elective or required for the curriculum.
Yeah, because if it's because if this course is elective to maybe only like top students would like try to do this course, and then maybe it will be like mostly like male students, or I just don't know.
But you are right. That's a good
we
point.
don't have like this problem because everybody must do it. So they just and I just want to ask a question, like when you say like 33 like will courses, it's I just like didn't think we have like so many. Is it like courses that actually have like maybe like will component in their course profile? How did you find this like 33 will courses just?
So those will courses, they are those who are like labeled, will courses across the group. So basically in aviation, we have, we have all of them. And then it's really, how would you say, planning, like for planning, we have the planning practicum, so those who are with industry. So basically we did ask the program director and the program and the head of discipline to tell us which courses were considered as a will for them.
I see. Because I was thinking that will is kind of like to me just it's like when students are placed in the industry or maybe like doing something related to the industry, right? So when they work in the industry, they also learn. So I did not know that we had like 33 courses, to be honest. But maybe like we do have. Okay, well, I just wanted to clarify this because I've been running.
Even we cannot hear you anymore.
You cannot hear me anymore?
I can.
You can? Oh, okay, now I can.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Helen, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. Thanks, Karine. I just in one of your first slides, you made mention of the Sonia system, and that I think it said something about people needed more, or staff needed more exposure to it. Did I recall that correctly?
Yeah, so like from the workshop, industry partner workshop, the industry partner said that the students, they need much more exposure to the real courses, or basically what they wanted, to the real life project, so to real life experience.
Right.
That's
So
not,
yeah, well, no, the Sonia system specifically, and I assume
the
that's
Sonia, wait, okay, yeah, I will.
and I assume that's what Griffith uses to manage the work experience.
Yeah.
Components. And so my question, so I'm a head of accreditation at Engineers Australia. So
Okay.
I'm particularly interested in the exposure to professional practice components of it. And I know that I think it was University of Sydney incorporated the stage 1 competencies into Sonia. And so I'm interested, and maybe it's more a question for Ivan. I don't know if you're.
We don't do. I mean, like we have a partnership office who actually manages all these projects like from the industry, and they do use Sonia. So they started using it, I think, from like maybe 2020, 2021. There was some bugs, but I think they fixed it. But we don't have that Engineers Australia competences one in Sonia. We just have it. We actually do it separately. So you probably know Simon Howell. He's actually still doing it sort of manually. I mean, not manual, through Pebble Pad. I'm not sure if they try to put it in a Sonia, because to be honest, it's only partnership office at Griffith who is using Sonia just to manage everything well.
If I can just add something also, from the workshop, it was said that not all the disciplines and even not all the course conveners are aware of the Sonia system, and that's a big challenge. So that was one thing. And the other thing is that they did suggest that it will be good to have a training so that people are aware of the Sonia system. And also because there is some disciplines that are doing it so well, this connection with Sonia, that actually we should be paired already with those doing it well. So for example, from architecture, they say, oh, in engineering, it works so well. Why don't we go with engineer and ICT to learn from them? So that was something that was suggested.
Okay. And I have another question around, you did this mapping of the, or this analysis of the graduate attributes and the learning outcomes. Was there any analysis of, did the students have to do a reflective piece on those learning outcomes or graduate attributes, and was there any analysis of what the students' view of what they look for?
Yes, so this is what we are currently taking, and at the moment, one big thing that comes up is that the student, first of all, they never read the course profile. So, or very rarely. So it means that learning outcome, graduate attributes, they don't use it even to put it on their own curriculum or CVs or portfolio. They don't do that. And then when we ask them, what is it that you have learned, to see if it comes back, if it aligns with what the university and the partner have decided it should be, then there are definitely some alignment, so some overlapping, but very often it goes with the communication or with the soft skills, rather than with the hard skill. And the students so far, they have always said also that when they arrive in the industry, what they realize is all what they don't know. So, and I think that is a very difficult thing to put in terms of graduate attributes. I understand what I don't know, but I think it could be such a good one, actually.
Yeah. Look, I don't know if you're aware, Engineers Australia, or Young Engineers Australia, run a engineering internship hub. Ivan, are you familiar with that?
No, I didn't.
I think you mentioned it last time when we talked about it.
So is that something I don't know if that could help inform some of your research, I'm not sure, but there's some, some good documents there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just search for Engineers Australia Internship Hub. That'll
Okay.
come up.
Thank you. I will look at it definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Karine, so when you mapped those, you show that outcomes, right?
Yes.
And then like you showed like I think 6 or 7 outcomes. So did you just check, did you look at the course profiles, or did you just talk to the course conveners, like to like map those things?
Yeah, so basically all the learning outcome were extracted from the course profile directly. And then because sometimes it's not exactly the same word, there was some, let's say, some grouping that were done. So when we have those 6 learning, no, we have 8 learning outcome, for example, one was called multiculturalism. Maybe in the course profile, it didn't say exactly multiculturalism, but it does give a definition or an indication that is towards multiculturalism. So we had some where it was exactly the same wording, and it's how actually we had like a word software, you know, to tell us, first of all, which were the bubble, you know, with Leximancer, which were the words that were recurrent. And after we were looking those that were close to it.
I see. And you also mentioned that there wasn't much about indigenous perspectives, right? I think that's First People in Australia, right? You said that. So doesn't mean that those like courses, they just like don't teach it, or they just like not part of the learning outcomes of those like 33 courses that you checked, right?
So again, I didn't understand.
You like if you go to the slides, right, you show like student attributes, and then you said like one of them, it was First People in Australia, like indigenous people, right? And then
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, and then like you show that that column wasn't as big as like as the other one. So did you get this information also from the course profiles?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
this
Everything
one
was,
you said like GA5, yeah.
Exactly. So all that was from the extracted from the course profile, all of those. Yeah.
Okay.
So for the 33 courses, we have a huge Excel spreadsheet. We copy paste all the learning outcome. We copy paste all the graduate attributes. And then after, we look at the relationship between the two.
So that kind of makes sense to me, because this is the students are going into the workplace, and so their exposure to First Australians would be quite limited. The opportunity, I would imagine, for that exposure, and I would hope that that's being picked up in other courses.
Yeah, and it's why I think, to me, it's not so much about the culturally capable when working with First Australian that I think should be emphasized, but I think it would be more culturally capable with First Australian culture or something like that. Because the thing is exactly what you said, Elaine, is that when working with First Australian, it's not that every day in every business you meet First Australian. So it's not. And I think the wording should be reconsidered, because if we want to achieve what was signed by our Prime Minister in Queensland, like to be culturally capable about First Australian culture and acknowledgement, then that is another problem.
Well, thanks, Karine. Any more questions? Anybody would like to ask questions? You can put it in the chat if you want to, or
No, otherwise that's fine. Now we finished early. But thank you,
So
Elaine.
it was
Thank you so
clear.
much for
Yeah.
and Ivan as well. Yeah.
Well, if no question, I would like to thank Karine for her time and for your effort also like to do this research. Did you mention that you guys like went through like hundreds of literature papers? That's a lot.
Yeah, 188.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so many. Oh, I just like so many websites. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing this interesting information. I think it's always good to know what academics do in different departments, so that we can also help each other and share our knowledge and experience. Thanks, Karine.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ivan, to
Yeah,
organize.
yeah.
Elaine?
Can I make a plug for the webinar on Monday? That's coming up for Engineers Australia, or is that
Yeah, go ahead. I think that is interesting.
so I'll just put it in the chat. So
Okay.
Yeah.
an
Okay.
accreditation, the accreditation management system. So that's
Yeah.
Monday at 11 o'clock. You do need to register to get the link.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks,
But also,
Helen.
I also wanted to let you know, Ivan, if you want to get these into the A2E2 newsletter, the next one is going out on the 14th of July. So if you've got
Okay.
anything,
I will try to do it like
let me
before
know.
the 14th of July and then let you know so that you can also. Yeah,
Yep.
thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks, Helen.
That's okay.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for attending this webinar. Have a nice day and have a nice weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ivan.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.